Allie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
What is the feels and what is it a response to?
Great question. The Feels was born from me being 38 and single and in a lot of grief and stuckness and really needing, wanting other humans who were thoughtfully approaching dating. I knew I didn't want to go to a speed dating event. I knew I didn't want to just show up at a bar with a bunch of other singles and get drunk.
Let's pause there because before you even go, there's a couple things you mentioned that I think are interesting. One is the sort of the stuckness. There is this sense that everybody else moves on. And you're like, wait a minute, you feel weird about it. And the alternative mechanisms of dating are weird. Like speed dating is a great example. It is so awkward. And I don't know why that has become the common in real life mechanism for dating. And then you've got dating apps, which it's rough out there.
Yeah. One data point that I think was affecting me deeply and most millennials is this idea that the majority of our dating and relational life happen when apps were at their most powerful, most widely used, most popular moment. They peaked in 2020 during COVID. So by 2021, we were in a moment of collective awareness like, oh, this sucks. Like, this doesn't feel good at all. I acknowledge and have written extensively around how addicted to them I felt and how I was hiding myself in social situations because I'd be like, oh, I don't need to bother flirting. I don't need to bother approaching anybody. I can just go home and swipe. And so I was aware of that. Also, I went and got a master's in spiritual psychology. I was studying the work of Carl Jung and the somatic intelligence movement and mindfulness with a Buddhist monk. I got to do a lot of work with nonviolent communication and I smushed it together into something that has curiosity around what happens when we turn off our brains and tap into our bodies and our intuition and let those systems of knowing lead us because apps are so brain forward. Where do they live? What do they do? How cool are their photos? How physically attractive am I deeming them in this moment? None of that information is reliable when we're mapping to compatibility. So the Feels, is popular because it was novelty, because it created a space for people to be really surprised. We hear all the time, this isn't somebody I'd normally go for, but that just felt really good.
But years ago, I attended one of your events and I loved it. I'll talk about that experience. It's funny with these dating events, people are like kind of embarrassed to be single sometimes. It's very interesting, you know? I think we live in a married, children-centered world for reasons that make sense, but I think that is such a dominant frame that people feel almost embarrassed to be single sometimes. So they'll show up to these events and be like, "I never do this," but, what I thought was really cool about your event that I attended was you don't really give people the opportunity to indulge in that kind of feeling. Like, you're just in it, and you're having these fairly deep conversations really fast with people. Um, how do you get people to connect that quickly?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I'll jump back into some of what you were sharing prior, which is just to say, I think socially and culturally, we do give so much primacy and almost like, wow, you've achieved something if you've found your person, gotten a home, and had the babies. And I think that that's a real disservice to all of us because I think anyone that ends up in a committed relationship would say, oh, now we just have new problems. We can do a lot of like, oh, if only my person would come along, everything would just be so much better. And I think that that's totally erroneous. I also think that in giving such primacy and such this is the only thing that actually matters, then we cut out the space to create really interesting dynamic alternatives, which I think are important because for millennia, if you look at how we've related, we did so in packs, right? Like we were moving in packs of 150 people for for so long, which is just to say like multiple generations were raising children and we were mating from those like in immediate proximity to us. And there's something really wonderful about that model as well. Moving on to the Feels. So the Feels is very facilitated. We are really managing people's anxiety from the moment they walk in the door. And we've learned a lot about how to work with the collective anxiety that we all feel. We are all afraid to be seen, to be rejected, to be fully wanted, to be met. We all have equal desire and equal fear around this material. And so the Feels is a microcosm for that. we're working in real time with stuff you're dealing with in your life all day, every day. And
Help us understand the texture of it. So people show up, and we'll use the sort of heterosexual monogamous example of it, and we can talk about some of the other
yeah, yeah,
types of meetups that you have. But so, you show up to the event. This was my experience. You show up to this event, maybe you'll have some drinks, talk to some people, and then
yeah.
walk us through it.
Then I or the facilitator that evening get up and we deliver a monologue. We share a story from our dating lives because we want to establish what it means to vulnerably share. And then we also do things in that opening monologue, like walk them through where their body is going to be in physical contact with other bodies to give their consciousness a chance to know what's ahead and to feel empowered. We also talk about the philosophical foundations of the format. We talk about discomfort, why we're fans of discomfort. And then we shift them into an opening circle. Everyone says their name and a word that describes how they're feeling to like present them in the here and now. And
And I
then there's
remember those being where people were voicing their fears. A lot of people
totally
are awkward, scared. Like those are the kind of words I heard around that circle.
unsure,
Yeah, yeah.
buzzed. Yeah.
And I think it helps other people to see that because I think everybody has this experience. I've walked into so many situations over the past 10 years where I had this feeling of being a beginner and having that first day of school
Yes.
feeling.
Yes.
I have to fight that. We call it imposter syndrome, but I think it's so many more things than that where you're just like, everybody else knows each other. Everybody else is more confident. And then I think what's good about that circle is you see, oh, everybody else is scared too. And it automatically makes you feel better.
Yeah, there's that in the room for sure. We also have them do a 6-minute guided meditation to activate the parasympathetic nervous system because we want you as calm and grounded as possible. Then we get you up, and then throughout the night, you're in 4 pairs. And in each pair, you have a prompt that we give you. You have time to compliment each other. The prompts are always questions that have some depth and texture to them. Like where are you currently finding the most joy and where are you currently feeling the most challenged? And that's because like we're interested not in like what do you do and where do you live, but can you share with somebody at depth? Can you access that part of you? And there's time to positively reflect each other. This is nonviolent communication 101. And then the heartbeat of the format and what feels different, which is a somatic thing that they're going to do together. And that might be you go back to back and one person goes forward and another person feels openness. It's really about co-regulation and it being able to feel your body and not in a sexual and erotic way.
I know people who hear it, the feels, and then when you're given some of your caveats, it sounds like a sex party when you
No,
first hear it, but it's not. That's not
no,
what it is, people.
no, no. We don't welcome any sexual or erotic energy into the room because it that's actually not the most useful information when you're trying to figure out if someone's a vibe. It's easier to do that. It's a lot harder to maintain eye contact and stay present with each other, to stay in your breath. And so there's after you do the somatic thing, maybe it's a hug, maybe it's an eye gaze, maybe it's back to back. Then you have a minute to process. And then we get you up and we guide you into finding a new person. And then there's a closing and there's more time to mingle. And again, it's all designed to bring you into the present and be in your body so that you can make a grounded choice.
I do remember there was something interesting. You'll be in this circle, so you're kind of like sizing people up. You're like, she's cute, he's hot, whatever. You could see people sizing each other up. And I can't remember how you're paired.
So first we ground you in your nervous system again because you're about to like be in an experience of choosing, and then we guide you into tuning into whether there's somebody you feel called to be in another pair with. We try to use language like, can you see beyond the physical? Can you recall somebody whose word resonated with you? Can you feel into whether there's somebody who feels kind? Like we very much are interested in whether you can get out of your dominant response. So your
Mhm.
dominant response consciously or unconsciously sounds like, I like their face, or they've got a hot body, or their outfit's cool, or they appear to be my type.
Mm.
All of that is to us less interesting than, ooh, that person feels really kind. They're not normally somebody I'd go for, but like I just I wanna have 5 minutes with them. That's much more compelling to us. Now, is this a slight idealization of what happens? And is there a little bit of these anxious patterns and all these, last kid picked at the softball effect thing? It's firing.
Yes. Yeah,
And
that's the worst.
is
Yeah.
that an element that's happening in that space? Yes. Do we know it? Yes. Are we supportive of it? Yes. And the reason why is we believe in discomfort. I think something that online dating has done, and the fact that we've been doing it now for 20 years, is give us the illusion that we don't have to be uncomfortable. I can just swipe. I can just end this conversation. I can just ghost. I can just peace out. I don't actually have to be accountable here. And that is a disservice to everybody because life will have us navigate discomfort. Real relationships have us having to navigate discomfort, conflict, unease, anxiousness, fear, uncertainty. And if we don't build our muscle, when we finally have that point of, oh, I really do like this person, I really want to show up for this, we're rendered less capable. And so we
Right.
are interested in discomfort.
Have you had issues with gender balance? Or has there been a pattern where there are either too many men or too many women in the community?
Yeah, just net, if we let everything run and didn't fidget a lot, 80% of my ticket sales would be women.
I know you started in New York, but everything I've read about New York is there's more
Women.
accomplished women in the dating pool.
Yeah, if I could send a message to my fellow New York women in their 40s, move to the Bay. It's just so much
Yeah, or
better.
Austin, Texas or
Yes,
something.
Austin,
Yeah.
Boulder, the Bay, like, just,
Yeah.
you look where, like, the demographics are in different splits.
What do they say about the Bay? The odds are good, but the goods are odd?
I've heard that. Yeah, listen, I have such a crush on our community in the Bay and the men in the Bay. There's something about the culture where radicalism and the counterculture got birthed in America that,
I
like,
know. Don't
makes
you
that
wish you could
place
take a time machine and go back to,
the
like,
60s.
any point in San Francisco before 2000, basically? Seems like the coolest city of all time. I was just saying this, like, in 2008, DC and San Francisco were all my friends were moving, and they were the coolest cities. And I no offense to either of those cities, but I wouldn't say either of those cities are at the top of my list now, but
I'm a
yeah.
fan. I'm a
Yeah.
fan. Yeah.
You're like a politician here because you can't offend your communities. I see what you're doing. So, okay, you also started a polyamory version of this. What's different about that? The dynamic in that room?
In the past, we've had poly and queer versions of the feels. Something we've observed is straight singles are just putting a lot of pressure on themselves. Males, females. I think there's also amongst hetero singles, like what I call it a relational anemia, especially for people who have been primarily dating through apps. There's this paradox where it seems, oh, there must be so much activity because there's so much choice, and it actually shut us down. It's just isolated us. And I can't tell you how many people I talk to who haven't been on a real date in months or years, who haven't had sex in years, who are well into their adulthood and never had a real relationship. There's just something really
It's
worrisome.
weird, yeah, and I have, like, some hot, accomplished friends who fall into this bucket, right? How
No,
is
no,
that
this
even
is
possible?
agnostic. This is
Yeah.
agnostic. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
And what I will say about the queer and E&M versions of the event are people are more relationally varsity. They've had more exposure, they've had more experience, they have more language for their inner world, they're more self-aware. If you are queer or you are exploring non-monogamy, there's something about saying like, I am willing to step outside of the paradigm and I'm willing to declare my own relationship to this. Going back to where we started and you saying like there's shame around singleness or you haven't found your person and had 4 babies, something's wrong. What if we collectively said, yeah, that is a way, but what if it's time to reinvent all that? And what if we can be just as happy in a completely different configuration and queer and open communities are willing to question that. And just in questioning it, you become a more dimensional being and more relationally intelligent.
So that seems like a fairly positive assessment. But from what I understand, you have at various points slowed down the growth of the polyamorous community for
So
those
we
gatherings?
we don't do any E&M events right now. We do still have queer a couple times a year. And a lot of that though is like financial. In both communities, you're talking about 10% versus 90% of the
Right.
population.
Is there a gender imbalance in the E&M too? Like like I would guess the other way, more guys maybe?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah.
That's so fascinating. So do you have any sense of how many people have been through these events since you started?
Around 8,500.
And how many marriages, relationships, kids, things like that?
I really wish I knew. I know of a couple engagements, but like, I feel like I'm the last to know. Like, someone would be like, "Oh, like, they met this couple that met the Phils." I'm like, "You they did?"
You forget you and I, knew each other through Arena. I forget sometimes, I'm like, "Oh, Hari and Emily got married because they met at Arena. Sarah and Sujit got married because they met at Arena." You can go down the list, but I don't think of it that way because they're just my friends now. But I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's how they met," and that's super cool, and to me I mean, your community is explicitly about bringing people together in this sense, but I look back at a lot of these institutions I started, whether it's the schools or Arena, things like that, and actually, it's those relationships. I'm such a cornball saying this. It's the people you met along the way that matter. But it's like those relationships matter to me as much as anything else. You know, I think that's really cool. It's how you pass the wonderful life test to be like, okay, I was here. I made an impact on this world. I brought some people together. You know,
Totally, totally.
so you've now been running these communities, and you've got a good sense for what people are looking for. I think there are two sort of segments of our audience. The single people out there who just want to feel heard and want to understand different pathways. And then there are the married people out there who are just curious as to what the hell is going on out there. And, as somebody who is in his early 40s and has been unmarried for my whole life, I'm almost like an anthropologist to the dating world, a very imperfect one. I actually just sat down with a friend of mine who was newly single, and he was kind of excited, but also scared. And he's like asking for my advice. And I was like, "Ugh, I don't know if I have any." But what I said was, the apps are very dangerous. They're, they're, they're not useless, but they're very dangerous in a place like New York because the volume of people is so high. You can get lost and it could be demoralizing because it is so focused on appearance and a very particular kind of appearance that shows up in a certain small amount of dimensions. And the mechanism of having to stare at your phone and chat, I just find it exhausting. But then again, so many people I know have gotten married from them. So I don't think they're totally useless. I just think they should be treated with my other advice is just two cool things. Surf, join the local pickleball league or whatever, and remind yourself, especially if you're a millennial, you have the skills somewhere down in there where you can meet somebody in real life and give them your number and ask them out and stuff like that. Like it's in you still. That's my general advice. It's so simple, but so give me yours. And I know you're doing matchmaking as well. What's your advice to people who are single?
And so my take, it's a little bit like radical and it's very like absolute, which is get off of apps, period. Get
Really?
off of them. Yes. Get
Wow.
off of them. And there's a multitude of reasons for that. Like everything from they mess up your brain chemicals big time. They are almost guaranteed by virtue of the laws of capitalism to fail you. But they're going to tell you that they're designed to be deleted. They're not. They're designed to make more money off of you. And they're going to continue to be a shittier and shittier experience to the point where you're completely depleted. Once you're completely depleted, then you're not behaving well. Once your bad behavior is in the ecosystem, it signals to others to behave badly. Once others are behaving badly, everybody's behaving badly. So they're an ecosystem rife with ghosting, breadcrumbing, gaslighting. The possibility at this point in time, at this point in their evolution, that you go on and you have an enriching, dynamic, expansive, wholehearted experience is almost nil. So giving your money, giving your time, giving your hope and your faith to these systems is not the way.
Yeah, I just want to second what you said. I think the norms on these apps are awful. I look at my experience over the years on them. I have both been the perpetrator of the dynamics you talked about and the recipient of them,
Exactly.
often at the same time. It is the area for which I've had to take a step back over the years and really examine myself. They're all kind of sins of omission. The lack of courtesy I've showed in that space and received dwarfs anything I've experienced anywhere else at any
Totally.
time,
Right.
you know?
And it's a time when it's supposed to be the best of us. And that's the paradox as well. Like it's actually the worst of us. And I will add to what you're sharing. This is not talked about enough. These apps are especially hard on men. They're mistreating men.
Scott Galloway talks about this, that there's a Gini coefficient on the apps. A very small percentage of men are incredibly successful, and that there's a lot of men who are just not succeeding.
If you look at how men and women choose and where men and women are putting their attention, what we see is that something like 5% of all men are getting something like 80% of the attention. So, relatively tiny number of men are getting the vast majority of the likes, the roses, etc., which leaves all of the other men feeling neglected, unseen, cared for. And this is where you get the manosphere and the incel movement. Like you get, this compounded belief, like we're not wanted, we're not we're not enough, we're not appealing, and that's not going to feel good to anybody. Like of course
Yeah.
men are reacting. There's a great book that came out recently by someone named Paul Eastwick called Bonded by Evolution, which talks about how when we're left to our own devices, after we get past, we're looking for somebody smart and kind and funny. What men say they're optimizing for is a woman who brings youth and beauty. And women are optimizing for wealth and status. And what the evolutionary psych movement would argue is that this is a biological imperative. Men want to be with women young enough to have all their babies, and women want to be with men rich enough to afford them. And the problem with this that the book argues and the data supports and and that we know as humans, whether somebody has low body fat or can buy you a business class seat has nothing to do with compatibility. Whether you're together in 20 years is going to be about the moment to moment experience of the relationship. Were you able to healthily navigate conflict? Were you able to stay in connection? Did you create a relationship that has you both interdependent beings, but creatively designing the relationship to hold two beautiful lives? Like, were you able to stay present with each other? Were two nervous systems able to stay grounded? Like, those are actually the questions that we should be trained to ask and be curious about. And so, but apps are only like hitting our worst compulsions around what we want, what we deserve. We're really seeing like, well, if this person of this value is choosing us, then we must be a value. And none of that's real or true. And so I'm a big on apps, period.
The certainty of that. One question on all this too is there are all these memes out there about what sort of men and women are looking for, how unrealistic both trends of what people search for in the apps or whatever. There's this meme of women who want 6 feet or taller and a certain amount of income. Somebody ran the math on 6 feet tall, makes $500,000 a year in
Yeah.
New York.
Yeah.
And the percentage of people
Yes.
who meet that is like
Yes.
1%,
Yes. Yeah.
less
Yes.
than 1%.
Yes.
Yet
Yes.
40% of women listed that.
Yes.
Yeah, and then, with the guys, I don't like to simplify, but I think guys are very looks driven on this
Totally.
kind of
Totally.
stuff.
Totally. I have theories that are totally untested and unbacked around that, which mainly are that I don't think we have given men enough faculty, enough training, enough space to be emotionally in tune. We say you can be rageful, you can be angry, but that's it. We've really said to men, you have to lead everything from the rational, the logical, the control center, the brain. And so I think what men do is something that sounds like, okay, well, I'm turned on by her. I'm physically attracted to her. Okay, I'm in. Versus, how does this feel? Do I feel seen? Do I feel met? Does this feel easeful? Are laughs coming smoothly and
I think it's
easily?
even worse than you described because I think a lot of men have a broader conception of beauty and attractiveness, but they have a narrow band of who they would want their friends to know because this is a particular standard of beauty that I can explain to my friends versus I think there's all kinds of people who are sexually attractive or beautiful, but there's this reptilian version of you from high school where that even though the norms have changed, you have this narrow band in your head. And I think that leads to some pathological behavior. I think it leads to people dating people who are quote unquote pretty, but that they're not attracted to, and then avoiding or having more casual relationships with people who are the exact standard of beauty that you are into, but you don't feel like you could explain it to people.
Yeah, it's beautifully said. And I think these are other ways that we are unfair to men because men are receiving affirmation through this loop that sounds like you have achieved something if other men want to fuck who you're dating. Like it and
Yes.
and it's
Yeah. Yeah.
like, but
Well,
it
two
has
things, Allie. Other men want to fuck who you're dating. And that's how they would talk about it, right? And men are not the most honest brokers of their own feelings on that, which we could talk about. But 2 is who your mom likes. So it's like, who is mom gonna think is, like, gonna meet that standard, right? And obviously, neither of those are about who you're that into,
Yeah.
and that's where people get themselves into trouble.
Yeah, and this is the unfair piece is like we haven't said like, well, how does she make you feel? What's alive for you around how this feels? What's your intuition saying? What does your gut tell you, right? Like we haven't given men a lot of space to tap into other systems of knowing. We've said it needs to be as basic as, well, does she check the boxes of, yeah, you can take her home to mom. Your friends are jealous of you or your friends are
Yes,
affirming you
yeah.
this way. You're turned on enough. There's a reason I'm a really big fan of men's work, and it's because it taps men into other systems of knowing and gives them space.
What's men's work?
Men's work is a space where men can just be with other men and be in a full expression of their emotional experience, can
Yeah.
be sad, can be full of shame, can be vulnerable. Like, we just don't give men enough space to be the full spectrum of themselves, but specifically to be vulnerable. And you said something around dating and the ecosystem and how to meet that. You mentioned activities, like I think you said, yeah, go surfing. And I want to just plus that and say, I think that the way back is to reinsert ourselves. And this is like what you were saying with arena. Like no one was going to arena because they were like, I'm gonna meet my boo. They were like, this is something I care about. This is something I want to give my energy to. These are the values I have expressed in the world. These are people who like doing the things that I like doing. Boom. And I think if we can go find spaces that allow us to show up with repetition consistently with people who like doing what we like doing, who share our values, that's the best place to meet our boo. But we gotta also show up without agenda. Like, don't show
Yeah.
up to
Well, we used
surfing.
to say this in Staten Island when we go to the Jersey Shore. My buddies and I would say, when we go to Belmar, don't go there trying to meet a girl. If you just go there and we're just going to have a good time with each other. Whereas when we go there seeking is when we would get in trouble. And some wise friend said, okay, no agenda. We just go.
Exactly. Exactly.
Now, I think the activity driven and hobby driven is important for another reason, which is there are all these cliches movement is medicine, action cures anxiety. I think there's just another benefit of the tactile experience of just being out there and doing things versus staring at your phone and hoping that's going to be the
Totally.
solution to things. It means that even if you strike out,
Yes.
you are enriching your life and you're moving. Versus if you take it the other way, which is if you're staring at your phone and you're striking out and you don't find what you're looking for, you will have completely wasted your time.
Yeah. And it's higher fidelity relating. Like if you're in a group of humans and you're having a relational experience, even if it isn't a vibe, you're still in an experience of mapping. What's drawing me here? You're having to use your words. You're having to experience something in real time and you're going to build relational muscle. Whereas if you're just on a screen, oh, that's an X, that is not high fidelity. And
Yes.
there's something about being in relational practice that's so important in this moment when, and it's not just dating apps. I'm looking up at the projector screen in my apartment. Anyone can be like, oh, I could go out to a party or a bar and shoot my shot, or I could just watch Netflix. And we have to bring new time, attention, energy, focus to the get out and go play paddle or go to a group meditation thing or go to a choir thing. We have to recommit fully because if you look at why and how this all dramatically shifted, it was when we allowed technology to play such a dominant role in our
Yeah.
lives. Previous generations met through friends, met at the bowling alley, met at Rotary, Lions, Kiwanis, unions through work, met at school, and met at church, temple, mosque. There was a lot of that up until boomers. That's the only way we met. And so we do need to bring some of that back because the technology brings out the worst in us.
Allie, this is absolutely wonderful. I could talk to you forever. Where can folks find all of your work? Drop it all on us, and we'll also put it in the show notes.
Instagram's the easiest at the feels. And then the website with all of the events, retreats, everything we do is on the website at catchthefeels.co. My Substack is called Stories by Allie, and that's all me talking about my relational life with a goal to help others learn and see.
All right, everybody, thank you for listening. Remember to rate, review, subscribe if you haven't yet. Pre-order that book, The Invisible List, and yeah, you could join our posses. If you send us the pre-order to Lauren at orangeboatmedia.com, then we'll sign you up and we can get you involved.